Welcome everybody to the Bartender's Jukebox Podcast. This is the House of Men's Mental Health. We're waiting on Ox to join in with us right now. Rob's not feeling the best today. He's a bit under the weather, so right now it's just me and the legendary Mark Mest.
That's right. Happy to be here like always. Oh,
Right, we were talking briefly before we jumped on the stage here for the live stream. I'm doing the podcast outside today because I'm going to get some stuff off my chest, and it's going to be a bit rough for me to talk about. But that's what this live stream is about. It's about breaking the silence and the stigma of men not being able to talk about things. And today, when I talk about some things, it is going to go very deep. Um, and sometimes it's just a matter of either somebody listening or they might give you a different perspective of what's going on.
right.
So, all right, it's me and you, Mark. I'll start this off.
Okay.
So, last year I moved up north to take care of my mother. Um, this has all been a new learning experience for me. As a former farmer, what everything entails with learning with working a farm.
Yep.
When we first came up here, my stepfather, he had dementia, started, thinking he was an electrician. And so we're working on electrical issues and stuff like that, aside of trying to get the fields going and learning the whole process to begin with. That on its own is just a huge feat. Uh, when we got up here, we were under a certain perception of my mother's health. Uh, so she wouldn't be here by herself. Come to find out, with a lot of the issues dealing with my mother, she had some serious mental problems going on that none of us knew about.
Oh,
She deals with this thing called Hitchinson's personality disorder. What it is a personality disorder where the person doesn't have any empathy. It's almost it sounds very cruel and harsh, and it kind of is in certain scenarios. So Hitchinson's disorder is the person becomes very self-centered. They don't see outside the box of themselves.
right.
Um, Growing up, and I started putting pieces together with things with this disorder. There's no cure for it. There's only about 1% of the population that has it.
Yeah.
Um, so looking back on my past, a lot of the things I was told when I was a kid um, turned out not to be true because with this disorder, stories are embellished, lies happen as well.
Oh,
So a
wow.
perception, yeah. So a perception that I have growing up is not what it was, and that's a realization that I'm coming to. My mom would tell me bad things about my grandparents and stuff like that, on both sides, her side, my dad's side, and it's a very vindictive and resentful feeling that that person has towards people around them. It's like the world has jaded them, so they do things to get attention. Be it coming in a room and just staring at you, or you say you're tied up in work and they're not supposed to do something, they end up doing it, and you got to take away from what you're doing. We've been doing a lot of that kind of stuff lately because of the care for it, but we were under the misconception that it was her age, and here it's not. Um,
So in reality, you're
it's
saying is a lot of your childhood was a lie because of all the false accusations and everything that she was saying.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
When my parents got divorced when I was 13, and I was a child that kind of fell by the wayside. My brother, when he was 3 years old, had meningitis that they thought was just an ear infection. Well, he ended up slipping into a coma and having learning disabilities from it.
Oh, wow.
Um, he was in a coma for about 2 weeks.
Jeez.
Came out of it. He's fully functional. He just has a little bit of issues, but just
Right.
like me and you, he can go to work and do everything else. So that happened. I don't know if that the Hitchinson's disorder happened during that period or if it was something when he was a kid.
Right.
Um, but then I was kind of the child that went by the wayside in a sense because of the care going to my brother.
Right.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things on my own, how to cope with things, how to deal with things, and I've been through, like I said, my dad was a Vietnam vet, and sometimes he'd have blackout moments, and I dealt with that stuff before. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
You kind of move forward from it, and you stand your ground. All right, we got Ox with us now. What's going on,
Hey.
brother?
Welcome.
Hey, brother. So I was just hanging in there, man, hanging in there. So today, I figured I'm gonna vent out some stuff that's going on with me, and hand the reins over to you guys. So some of the things I'm dealing with right now, and I was talking with Mark about it. Um, you probably heard a little bit of my backstory before. Growing up as a kid, my dad was a Vietnam vet. I would deal with blackout abusiveness. I was raped in Boy Scouts at one point in time. And recently, I was telling Mark that when we moved up here to take care of my mom, we were under the impression that she was dealing with some things that were from old age. But it's not the case. She's dealing with something that's called Hitchinson's personality disorder. What that is a disorder where the person constantly seeks attention no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're their child or anything like that. They have a very self-centered demeanor to them with everything they do. And in order to get that attention, like my brother was up just a week ago, he's on seizure medicines and stuff like that. She had a moment where she took and hit his meds on him.
Jesus. Wow.
But that's part of the disorder that I'm dealing with right now. And this is where it's going to get a little deeper and rough for me to talk about, and I do apologize. So,
Just let it out, buddy.
thank you. A few months ago, and we've been going back and forth with the doctors trying to pinpoint what's going on with her. They said she is perfectly fine, for dementia and stuff like that. But there are some other concerning things that are going on before this. So there's the Hitchinson's disorder. Like I said, it's a personality disorder that seeks attention, but there's also a touch of schizophrenia in there. So I'm coming to the realization now, a lot of my childhood was a lie that was made up, in different stories and variations. My mother would downgrade her parents, my dad's parents, everybody that was in close range of her. She put a negative spin on them. And I'm really coming to find out things weren't that way. So instead of like right now, I'm currently dealing with those past transgressions. I'm trying to come to grips with it and dealing with what's going on in the here and now. Because at the same time, dealing with what's going on in the here and now with these new things coming up, we're still trying to run a 93-acre farm at the same time. And as soon as we step out, she starts acting up to get attention. So we got to stop what we're doing to come back in. So like I was saying, a few months ago, she decided to take a potato with tinfoil and put it in the microwave, and stood and watched it as it was catching up. At first, we thought, oh, well, maybe this is something that, it's the old age thing. After going through the process here, that's not the case. And we actually had to send my mom to mental rehabilitation, more or less. The state 302'd her, and she needed more help, so they 303'd her. And all this stuff is
There's a 303. What's a 303?
Okay, so the 302 is when the state puts you in, but if you need
I know what
extended
302 is. I just never heard of a 303.
if you need the extended time, they do a 303. Then it has to go back.
I think
to
a
the court
302 is only 72 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it's the 302 is the initial getting you in, and the 303 is the extended stay. She was there for over a month.
Oh wow.
Doing these treatments. And one of the toughest part was when she was in there, she was a little more docile because they were putting her on things like lithium and stuff like that. And we thought the behaviors had changed a little bit, but when we got home 2 days later, because that lithium's out of her system, she's going back into her old ways, only more amplified.
Oh.
And some days, it's a hard realization for me to realize this is going on currently, but yet I'm still battling the past at the same time, because basically everything I knew in the past has completely changed.
Right.
And this is, like I said, this is me opening up to you guys. You guys are older than me and maybe a little wiser than me. if you guys were in that situation, how would you handle it?
You know, it's a lot to take in for anybody. Doesn't matter, young, old. You know, doesn't matter how much experience you got. You know, I mean, my grandmother had. She eventually grew dementia, which is, I know, not the same thing, but like, you know, yeah, I understand how you're conflicted you can be, because at one point your whole life has been a lie, but now you see her diminishing, you
Yeah.
know, and you know, like, to the point where, what do you do? Where, I mean, we had to put my grandmother, you know, in a home because of it, because of not remembering and whatnot all, and tough thing to do, because you know you don't want to see. And the thing is, she lived in there for years. I mean, if it wasn't, I mean, she was in great health. She lived to be
Hmm.
90. The only reason she passed away in there is because her liver failed. You know, but you know, she got it in her 80s, and she lived alone, because my grandfather passed away probably 20 years before. He died of prostate cancer when he was
Hmm.
in his 60s. So you know, she lived alone. She was very independent and whatnot all, and then she was driving there for the longest time, to the point where, you know, she just started to forget things and this and that. But to be able to, you know, to put somebody in a place where you don't want them to be is one thing.
Yeah.
Dealing with all the stuff that you're noticing that, like, your childhood is another. They're separate, but at the same time they're running, you know, together, which is just, you know, I don't know. Processing
Yeah.
that is something tough to do. Like, I wouldn't know how. I mean, here's the thing. The facts are, your childhood was definitely, you know, a lot of it was a lie. You
Hmm.
can't change that. Now the thing is, you have to accept it. How do you
Yeah.
accept it? I don't know. That's for you to figure out. The
Yeah.
thing with, you know, with your mom and stuff, if she's got to go into a home or someplace, we all have one mom and one dad. You know, eventually, if you're putting them in, no matter what they have done, it's still your parents. To put
Yeah.
them, look, we got to put them in here, because you know, you can't, you know. And that was my problem with my grandmother. You know, she lived alone. We couldn't constantly go up there. I mean, she was only like 10 minutes away, but we
Hmm.
couldn't constantly somebody sit there and watch her 24/7. You know, because we were running the farm and still doing stuff. And you know, it's like, what do you do? And now you're running the farm, so I understand. I know exactly what you're going through to an extent, just not the childhood lie stuff. So
Yeah.
it's very confusing, and it's very heartbreaking, because all your emotions are being pulled in different directions at the same time. How do
Yes.
you and
Yes.
how do you figure that out? Man, God willing, I don't know. You know, but I think first things first, you're gonna have to realize that the past is the past. Somehow, some way, you're gonna have to figure it, like, okay, that's the way it was.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, you know, we're all getting older, so you know, we got one life here. So now you want to figure out how to live it the best you can, not being negative for all them years, because you're gonna 10 years you mope around and say, man, I wasted 10 years because I was miserable. I was this, I was that, because I resented all this.
Yep.
You didn't live your life. You know,
Yeah.
now you wasted more years of your life, because if you would have said, look, I got to come to terms with this stuff, because if I don't, it's going to ruin everything in my future. You
Yeah.
know, but how do you get there? You know, whatever makes you cope. If that means seeing somebody professionally, maybe medicine. I don't have the answer. All I know is, you know, I'm thinking, you know, you're going to have to take little things. Okay, I accept this. I got to accept that. Figure out how to do that so you can move on, because as you know, farm life doesn't stop. That's a
No, it doesn't.
day thing, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. You can't take a vacation. You can't, you know, because you gotta be there. And if
Yeah.
you can't do that, well, then like for us, you know, eventually we couldn't afford it. We had to sell everything, you know. But
Yeah.
it's rough. I get it, man. I really do.
I appreciate your insight, brother.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean, it's tough because not everybody has a different situation, but at the same time is it's not it's how you cope with it. It's how you figure it out. Some people
yes,
just say screw it or fuck it, whatever, and say, you know what, I don't care, and then they go downhill as well because they don't care. Then you start losing things that you hold dearly, to yourself, and eventually, you're on the outside looking in, and you're much older, and now you've got nothing. You know,
yeah. And I think that's where I'm at now. It's like I never thought I'd be in this mental headspace in my 40s. Um,
well,
I've always had that strong-willed attitude, but like I said, I mean, with my mother, we've dealt with things like animal abuse since we've been here with her. And I understand farm life has a certain demographic in certain ways with things.
yeah,
But that
yeah,
was another part. That was another part that came in pretty hard. Um,
yeah. I mean,
so
on the farm here that happened to us, the animals. You hate to see them
mhm.
get hurt or something, but
Yeah,
when they're
you
when
got
they
to.
when something happens to them and they're suffering, you don't have a choice.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. You got to do
Yep.
what you got to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was one thing with her. It was she, within the first few days, she sprayed my cat with a house cleaner right in the eyes. So it wasn't even an outside animal.
Wow. Wow.
That was, and we were trying to figure out why, and never got an answer as to why. And part of that, I guess, was I took it personally because when my brother passed away, that cat was my emotional support.
Yeah.
And now he's going blind, so I see it every day. It's like a lingering effect with it. I know it's something I'm going to have to let go of at some point. Just right now, in the meantime, it's just that hurdle I got to get over. That's just one of
Yeah.
the many hurdles, anyways.
Yeah. And it's sometimes the truth sucks. And it hurts. And how
Man,
do
it's
you
been a
handle?
it's been a blinding realization with the truth. Like it really has. Because before, like I said, it what I thought was the truth ended up not being the truth. So I'm kind of stuck in this limbo of I don't want to say what's real and what's not because obviously I know, but I guess it's the emotional instability because of that inside.
Well, yeah, exactly. No, I totally get it. I do.
What are your thoughts, Jared?
Yeah, I'm sorry you're going through that. I mean, I know it's. I mean, I can't imagine. My aunt was schizophrenic, and she didn't really act like she didn't really do things like that, but she did. Like she had a skewed version of reality too. Like one thing was always like she thought like people were coming through the walls at her, and people were like putting stuff in her coffee and her gasoline and stuff like that. Like that was mental health. I've said a million times. Issues have run in my family for decades and generations and stuff. So I mean, I guess like Mark said, you have to take it one piece at a time. I guess the best way maybe would be like to break up into the if there's somebody else you could talk to see what was true and what wasn't true.
We
There's
we t-
any
we we talked to different family members and stuff like that, and my mother always said, her father hit her all the time and stuff like that. Her siblings said he not once.
yeah,
And when she told me this stuff, this is right around the time my parents got divorced. I was about 13 years old. And she fed me all this stuff about my grandparents, my dad's parents, my dad, like anybody that was close. She trashed them and put this perception in my head that most of my family was bad.
right.
Um, and it's coming to find out those bits and pieces that are starting to come together that this what she has been going on for a very long time. Um, and like I said, as a kid, I mean, it very much so skewed my reality. Like she was very paranoid of letting me do things. I didn't have my first girlfriend until I was in my 20s, to be honest with you, because she was very controlling over that kind of stuff. And I mean, I don't know what else to really say, but
See,
my reality was just so skewed.
the other thing too is now I think for you to heal is any of the family members that are still around, reach out and try to bond and connect with them, to help, close that gap of all the lies, because, I mean, I don't know who's still around that you can talk to, but like, I
Her
would try,
87-year-old sister, and
huh?
she's still like on the fence of losing it.
I
That's
mean,
about it.
if there's anybody to connect, because, that would help with closure.
Yeah.
She's damaged so much that whatever is out there left to try to fix, I'm not saying not fix, amend, that, you can get some closure. Like, look, I know that person wasn't bad. That guy wasn't, this family member wasn't bad. That you can
Hmm.
say, hey, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't know my mom, we didn't know my mom was like this. That
Hmm.
way you get closure, because at the same time, if you need, and that's the thing too, is when I talk about taking little parts to, not to just accept and the closure, but you're going to eventually have to be okay with whatever the final outcome is,
Basically,
and that's what
basically
you have to live with,
come to terms with it.
Yes. Yeah. Eventually, somehow, some way that has to be the final end, because if not, that's something that's going to eat you day in and day out, make your life miserable. Like I said, you're in your 40s. It'll happen. It'll follow you your 50s, your 60s, and the
Follow
point
me right
where,
to the grave.
huh?
It'll follow me right to the grave.
Yes, if you allow it, you're going to have to figure out how to cope with that to get it done, because you got many years left in your life, man. So you can't let that stuff. You can't let your past determine your future. It's, I know it may be hard, but
Hmm.
you can't, because if you do, the past will ruin your future.
And
And nobody
I
nobody
think
wants
that's
that.
where I think that's where I'm at too. It's like where I'm at that point because everything changed so much. Like I can't say redefining my past, just in whatever the past was, coming to grips with it and redefining myself now as a person is I think where I need to be.
Yeah, yeah. It's not going to be easy, and this
Mhm.
could take months until you get things settled, and maybe in a year or two. It still may take time. It's going to take time. They say
Yeah.
time heals all wounds. They don't heal; they just scar over so they don't hurt as bad.
Hmm.
You're going to have to give that time to let this stuff scar over to be able to accept, what has happened, even though none of it's your fault. So you can't go the blame game. You can't say it's because none of this is your fault.
Hmm.
It's, your mom's and what she has done, which most moms you would think protect, but we all know in the real world that's not always true. You hear a lot of parents are supposed to, protect their children, but you look in the world, you can see many cases that there's some that just don't
Yeah.
care, or just, like I said, they have a condition that got undiagnosed for years. And what do you do? I
Hmm.
mean, as we progress in time, 30 years ago, you say some of these names and you think you're crazy because you never heard of them. But more and more of these, you know, issues, everybody's getting, before they didn't know about like dementia and Alzheimer's, and then there's schizophrenia, then there's this disease, that disease. Like
Yeah.
naming diseases like it's, like you're having children. You're like, what is all this stuff? As modern technology's coming, they're learning more and more and stuff. That's what's going on. But it's like anything. It's, you know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we didn't have the technology we do now, or the research.
Yeah.
You know, but that's going to be the tough pill to swallow, to get everything that you can say, okay, you know what? Past is the past. How do I move on from here? That's the key.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask some advice right now with dealing with the Hitchinson's personality disorder. With that, that person seeks attention, and by any means they get that. Uh, per se, putting tinfoil in the microwave, things that would be harmful to others or even animals.
Right.
That is one thing that has come into play with this. At first, it was just that's just my mother's personality, but understanding it more now, like she will do things with zero empathy to get that attention. And when I say zero empathy, this is one of the toughest things to outright say. When I was raped in Boy Scouts, my mother looked at me and said, "Well, why didn't you go to the hospital?" I said, "Mom, I was under your care and 13 years old." Like,
She never took you to the hospital,
nope.
like she should have.
Yes, her or
So
my dad. My
it's not
dad,
like
right around that time, was very abusive too. So it's
it's
who do
not
I
like
go to?
it's not like you could just drive yourself at 13. You know.
Yeah. And recently, as dealing with this Hutchinson's disorder, um, she finds humor in it. That is pretty much put in my face. Um, hey, what's going on, Chad? Um, so yeah, that's one of the tough things to deal um,
See,
with all
I
that.
think
It's a clusterfuck of like a roller coaster of emotions that I'm trying to filter through right now
I
to
think
find
what
that acceptance with it.
I think what you're gonna have to do, at least in my own opinion, if she's going to, if she's, I mean, nobody ever wants to put her into a home or somewhere because of her condition, but I think you're gonna have to dummy proof the house, kind of like a child.
That's what we've
Anything,
already started. That's what we
anything
started
that
to do.
anything that's possible that she could get her hands on has to be put away, locked up, something, you know, outlets covered, tinfoil put away, any sharp objects put away so they can't get to him. It's
Yep.
gonna be you're gonna dummy proof the house because if she goes
Oh,
looking for stuff,
that's what we've already done though. I mean, we've taken all the sharp knives away. No matches, no lighters, no nothing. Well, she's on the rule that if she wants to use the microwave or anything like that, or even a pair of scissors, we have to be on the same floor with her. But the Hitchinson's disease, it's to a point where it gives like a childlike behavior. Like, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm going to do it anyways because you told me not to.
right, right.
And that's been a rough one as
Yeah.
well because like we're doing the stuff we're supposed to, but at the same time, because of that disorder, it comes back almost tenfolds, like a childlike mentality.
What if you start looking at it as a reverse psychology, kind of like for kids, you
Okay.
know, kind of like, you something that you want her to do and you tell her not to do, you
Mhm.
know. I mean, I don't know if that would help at all, with things like like I mean, I don't
Like,
know.
so what you're saying is like, well, say you're supposed to write in your journal. Don't write in your journal, but she'll
Right.
do it. Like, have her do it anyways. All right. So with that, we've tried that, but she's very fully well aware that it's reverse psychology. That's the tough part about this because she's very coherent in her actions, like very very coherent in her actions.
Now, is she on medication?
Yes, they did start her on a Zoloft and they have Paxil is the other one, but with this Hitchinson's disease or disorder, it's not treatable. Only the depression and anxiety parts of it are. This is a straight behavioral thing that started at some point in her life, and only 1% of the population in the world has it.
Right.
So like, she's fully well aware of what she's doing, but she's still doing it to seek that attention, even if it's not on the forefront of her mind.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like being very narcissistic and not caring because that's who I am and
That's
I don't give a shit.
that's the other thing that came up with this, with the realization of everything. My mother was a very narcissistic parent, which in the home makes love conditional, if that
Right.
makes sense to you. That is a very strong part with the Hitchinson's disease. It goes with the narcissism, um, lack of empathy for anyone. Anyone. My mother was the kind of person that, when my parents got divorced, first off, it was the principal of my elementary school that was the reason for her divorce. Now, I heard all this stuff when I was a kid, and my stepmom was the reason as well. But
Right.
she was throwing hate and anger towards so many other people. You know, like I said, her parents, my dad's parents, my dad, anybody that was in arm's reach, it was always their fault, their fault, their fault. My mother, not once, and I can say this in her life, has taken accountability for everything. Like, it was always somebody else's fault, always somebody else's fault. Even up to this day, you know, well, my stepdad, oh, it's all his fault, it's all his fault, it's all his fault. But I'm coming to learn my stepdad, yes, he was shot 13 times in Vietnam, God bless his soul. He would spend his time out in the fields and not want to be inside
Right.
because of this. And before my stepfather, I don't want to say lost it, but when he was getting bad, he drove down to my house down in Sinking Springs, and he came like storming in my backyard and just said, "Your mom's the one with the issues. She has the issues." But my mom's been so good with faking and manipulation that nobody knew what was going on.
Right.
And I like, and he was crying. My stepdad is a guy that never cried. Uh, he was a tough man. I mean, volunteer firefighter, farmer, drove tanker for Clover Farms. I mean, the man was working 20 hours a day when only sleep 2 or 3 hours because of the testosterone shots he was on.
Right.
I mean, so like all those years, my mom was being very superficial about stuff as to what was going on. And that's why I said, when it comes up to this point, like, everything right now is really a harsh realization with trying to deal with it, because this Hitchinson's disorder, it's like I said, they're very fully well aware of what they're doing, but they're doing it intentionally to seek that attention, be it victimization, from the littlest thing all the way up.
Does she get hostile at all?
She's already threatened my wife a few times since we've been
What
up
if
here.
what if you did something like, I don't, well, I don't know if it would work or anything, but if you treated her like a kid, if she did something wrong, you made her like sit down and say, look, you know what, sit there in that chair or sit there, you did something wrong. Try, just say, look, and then kind of like, don't be hostile back. Be like, you did something wrong. Guess what? Now you're going to sit there and think what you did. Now, I don't know if it's going to help, but I'm thinking to get her to realize, like, when she does something, you're going to snap back at her. And,
Mm-hmm.
question is, does she like that, or does she? Because now you're giving her attention.
Yes.
So, does that fuel the fire for her? Or you kind of getting mad at her and kind of like raising your voice? Is that something that she doesn't like? Because
Honestly, it feels like it feels like she likes drama and chaos, because she would always talk about, and I remember my mom telling me stories, oh, so and so died, you got to hear this funny story. And I never understood why she would find humor in somebody's death.
right, yeah,
But that's where it all ties in. Like, she feeds off that drama
right,
that she either creates, and it's tough to see. Like, we had friends over for 4th of July. So in front of people, she'll play the frail old lady. But as soon as she goes out of sight of everybody, she's back to bopping around, moving around, clear as day.
right.
It's very night and day. And for a while, me and my wife were thinking we were fucking nuts because she's been so good at it.
I mean,
And
the other thing too is, and I hate to say it, but like, if she's not able to, if you can't take care of her to the point where she gets that way,
mm,
the home might be the only kind of thing to do. Because then at least they can watch her 24/7. That's their job. Like I said, nobody ever wants to do that. But at the same time, what do you do if she's creating chaos if medicine's not working and somebody has to be there, and you're afraid that if you go out for a couple hours, that she doesn't burn the house down,
Exactly.
because of what, oh, I'm going to go. What if I do this? What if I do that? Because
Yeah.
nobody's here. Guess what? I'll bring them back. I'm going to do something stupid in here. And, you know, and now you got to worry about safety. So, I mean,
Like
I'm
every time we leave the house, like we're constantly looking at the cameras just to make sure that she's not harming herself or an animal or burning down the house.
and the thing is, that's going to get old quick, you know.
It's been old. This has been wearing on us the last 6 months.
Well, and that's what I mean. I guess then the question is, do you talk about the putting her into some kind of assisted living to, like I said, nobody wants to, but at the same time, how old is your mom?
She's 74, and that's where it's you think it's old age and dementia, but
Well,
we've
no,
had
no,
pre.
no. My curiosity was, is she at 74? Is she in good, healthy conditions besides the
Yes, yes,
say?
100%.
And that
She's only on a cholesterol medicine. She can zip around this farm faster than anybody else some days.
see that was kind of the problem with my grandmother. Her physically, I mean, like I said, I remember she'd come down, she'd drive down, she'd weed in the garden for hours. She'd take it'd be
Uh,
like 89, it'd be like 85, 90 out, and she'd go out there for an hour or two. She'd take a break, go out there an hour or two. But she could go, 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 go. And like I said, it wasn't for her mind. She was living alone. She was driving. She was doing this, but we got
mm,
to the point where we said we can't watch her 24/7 anymore. We just physically can't, you know, and nobody can just, and for us to move back into the house with us would have been just more chaos, because then somebody would have had to be there all the time. When,
mm,
as you know, as a farmer, you're not in the house a lot because there's a lot of shit to do outside. So
yeah,
you can't. So that wasn't the option. And we finally said, you know what? She's got to go she's got to go into assisted living or somewhere to go, because we can't,
yeah.
and I hate to say it, but that might be an option that you guys might have to talk about and seriously start considering going, if this doesn't get better and she's healthy, she could
Hmm.
last another 15, 20 years,
And
because
that's what we've all been
my
questioning.
grandmother was 90. So, and like I said, the only reason she passed is because her liver failed. Heck, man,
Mm,
my great grandmother was like 92, and then my one aunt was like, I think my great aunt was like 97, and my other great aunt, who's still alive now, she's 90, and she's got some heart failure and some kidney failure at the time, but she was still driving around and doing stuff. So on my dad's side my dad's side, there's a lot of healthy genes. So that's why, so if she's got some healthy genes too, she could last another 15, 20 years. And you think about that, then you're going to be in your 60s. And eventually when
goodness.
something happens, like now you're going to be ready to retire. Well, nobody can retire in this day and age, but like,
No.
that'll be another so many years of stuff that, you're going to have to deal with. And like I said, it's heartbreaking, but you have to look at the reality too, because if you don't, what is it going to be in the next 5 years, the next 10 years?
Mm,
You're trying to farm. What happens? And if you can't farm, then what? Then you got to sell, and then what? Now you're going to move. Where are you going to? Now you got to kind of start all over again, because now that's not an option. So what do you do?
yeah.
There's so many questions to be answered. It's just that, sometimes the tough decisions are the hard, and you just got to make them, and may not like it, but sometimes you gotta do what's best, and that's sometimes the hardest part.
What are your thoughts, Ox?
The only I mean, obviously it's a concern with the attention. My concern is how far will she go for attention? Like,
That's that's
what's she gonna if
that's
she
a big
sprayed
thing.
the cat in the eye with the the stuff and the cleaner and all, like Like, will it get more violent? Will it get more like destructive? Will it get like she burns your house down? Will it get like, you know, will she burn 93 acres? You know what I'm saying? Like that's that's a concern, because then you go from, and I know this sounds funny or sounds terrible, but you go from going to assisted living to possibly going to prison. And
Yes, and that's what the doctors have talked to us about too. How bad it could possibly get.
and if that's the case, where you're going to have perhaps danger for you or your wife or your animals or stuff like that, that's where that decision that Mark was talking about, I think, is something that you not necessarily might want to do right now, but maybe have things in line.
Yeah.
You know, in
Okay.
case that happens, you have, okay, what's step one, what's step two, what's step three, because you don't want, I know it would kill me if, you know, I had to put my mom in assisted living or stuff. But in the same token, if I thought she was a danger to herself or others, that's the only option to make.
Okay.
Next question here: Who owns the farm? Do you own it?
Not yet. It's going to be transferred over to us once my stepdad passes away. We are power of attorney on everything for it. So everything is
Well,
as soon as he passes.
your mom doesn't have anything to do with it.
It's mainly in his name. She was just along for the ride.
Oh, well, that was one of our biggest issues too, and that's why, like, when she was still good, I mean, my grandmother was still good, she sold the farm to my dad for $1 and put it in
Yeah.
his name, because if something like this happens where they got to go somewhere, they will take everything you got.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's got to be a long period of time. It can't be like, oh, her health is starting to go down. Let's do this now. And in 5 years, something happens. We're in the clear. No, because they're going to see that and go on. Nope, that was intent. So it has to be like, down the road where, like, 10, 15, it's because of her health. But you did it because you wanted to, not because you're trying to save it, because the state will take every damn thing you have if it comes down to that. So that's why I asked, because that's the other issue. Because it's like, well, if she goes in and she has a part of this, they're going to come in and say, well, we're going to own this now because we have to pay for her, and that's a rough thing too, because then now you're losing,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to protect yourself.
Yeah. Ox. I don't know if you had heard me earlier, or if you weren't on yet. My mother has gone already for the extent of attention seeking. My brother, when he was 3 years old, had a form of meningitis that they thought was an ear infection. He went into a coma for about 2 weeks. He's had some problems ever since his whole life, and he's on seizure medicines for it. She took his seizure medicines and hit him on him.
Yeah, I was just on for that. See that
You are
to
okay.
me. I mean, that I'm going to tell you what like my family says. Like, a lot of times, like, the joke with my wife and my mother, and a lot of my family is, well, you can't go by you. Like, she's like, I say, oh, I don't like him, or I don't like, you don't like nobody, and a lot of it is I think because I don't want to sound too harsh, but because of where I've worked for the last almost 3 decades, I've seen all kind of manipulation and I've seen mental health. I've seen people who are just inherently evil and bad, people who hurt kids, people who hurt, you know what I mean? Like, and the thing is your mom, it's not that she's a bad person, she has a disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think, part of, like, maybe part of the healing process for you, is to realize it's not like she's a bad human. She has something, she's a good human with something wrong with her.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I think if that might help you as much as it'll help, maybe understanding what's going on with her. But in the same token, if she's coherent and she's understanding what's going on, but then because of the disorder does it anyway. Sometimes the power, I think a lot of times our society has gotten so weak to the point where people respond to different people respond to certain things, but everyone responds to fear and a fear of what will happen. Everyone does. It's a proven fact. So if you sit her down one day, you tell her, listen, I know you're going to understand what I'm about to tell you, but we understand you're sick. You understand you have this wrong with you. However, if this continues and if these incidents continue, we are going to have no choice but to relocate you to an assisted living facility or a mental health facility or something. Because if not, we cannot guarantee that you're going to be safe, the safety of you, us, or I mean, my dog is like my kid. If anybody hurt my dog, I don't know what the hell I do. You have a connection with the animal who, and with that. So I would just, be like, listen, this is what's happening. I would also, if you're somebody who can speak to her doctor or whatever, just be like, listen, this is where we're at. This is what's happening. And this is what's going to happen if this shit keeps going on. And I know it's a terrible thing to say because it's not like it's behavioral, but it's behavioral because of something wrong with her.
Yeah.
It's not like she just does it to be spiteful. She has something wrong with her. So I think maybe if you just, like Mark said, almost like a kid, you say, listen, this is what's going to happen. Non-negotiable, do your best to, don't you want to be like loving or don't you want to be blah, 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 blah. Because if this keeps going on, we're going to have to relocate you and we're going to have to do something else. Now, I'm not saying it's going to work, but I'm saying like that is pretty much, I would think, maybe your best bet because there's no medication for it.
No, they'd only treat, like I said, the only thing they can treat is anxiety and depression that comes along with it, but the disorder itself, there's
So
nothing they can do.
they can't give her anything that's going to make this behavior, stop per se. So
Yeah.
it almost has to be like, and at 74, she's 9 chances out of 10 not going to go to any therapy that's going to say, hey, we can maybe try and swerve this or something,
Yeah. Even with therapies, we got her to at least do phone call therapy, and
Yeah,
it's like she's talking to a friend.
yeah.
She tells them about the days going on, the weather, stuff like that, but they never really get into and her therapist is trying her best with her, but they get nowhere.
And when manipulators do that, manipulators, that's like if there's a book out there that I read a long time ago, it's called Games Inmates Play. It was recommended to me when I first started playing or started working in federal prison. And it's not necessarily that you have to apply it to just inmates. You can apply it to regular, ordinary people.
Mm-hmm.
But these are manipulative games that different types of personalities and everything else actually do to get what they want. So if attention is the game and you're not giving her attention, one or two things is going to happen. She's going to get tired of it and say, screw it, or she's going to do something big that you have no choice but to react. And you don't want that.
That's where I feel like it goes sometimes to the reactions, that she's not getting. And we sat down and talked with her and said, look, this is what's going on. You can't harm animals because of abuse. Like that's illegal. You harm others, that's illegal. Anything can happen. Do you want us to get law involved with it? And she kind of just drowns us out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I mean, like, I hate to say it, but I agree with Mark. I think to a point, at some point, like I said, not now, if it don't get any better, I would think you're probably going to have to make the decision of having her put somewhere where you can have. And I hate saying that because I don't, like Mark said, you have to move everything because the state will take every last penny that she has. Any
Yeah.
last. And but I mean, you can't be out there working and be running back in to check on her and out there working and running back in. I mean, the long end, the short end of it is you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
Something's happened to you, physically or mentally. You're going to break down
Yep.
because
And I think that's the point I'm getting close to right now, almost the mental breakdown. And that's why I wanted to open this up today to talk to you guys about it, because this is what we're spearheading here to prevent guys from having mental breakdowns. And to be
Sometimes,
honest with you, I think I'm almost there.
well then
sometimes,
feel
sometimes
that
the hardest decision is the right decision. Unfortunately.
it's like the hardest lessons learned are the best lessons learned. Like if you got to do something, or maybe like there's I don't know really like from a mental health standpoint what is available to that, but I mean you might have to get with and just say, listen, it's not safe here. It's not good for my wife. It's not good for me. Like, what's going to happen? And you're probably going to feel, if you do have to put her in an assisted living place, you're going to feel guilty and you're going to
Mm,
feel all kinds of shit. But in the same token, she's going to be in a place where she's safer and you guys are going to be safer. You know what I mean? And hopefully it don't come to that. But if you
yeah.
think, if it's coming to the point where you're feeling your mental health is suffering and you can't get away from it, she's your mom.
Hmm.
I'm obviously not going to put her out on the highway.
Hmm.
And there's not really, as terrible to say as it is, like there might come a day when there's no other choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
I have this suspicion that that's eventually where it's going to get to. Um, like I said, I was almost to the mental breaking point. Like I said to myself, today's going to be the day that I'm just going to open this up and talk about it. I know in the past few, I could have opened up and talked about it, but I just didn't think I was ready to. And that's the part of this stigma of mental health, because like
yeah.
nobody wants to express like something like that that's going on, male or female, it doesn't matter. Uh, you know,
Well,
but
a lot of people don't want to hear it. That's what it comes down to.
that
Exactly.
too, that too.
It's like, oh, you're going through whatever. Well, I've got stuff too, so I don't
Yeah.
need to hear your crap. You
Yeah.
know, and then a few days later, you do something stupid and go, oh, and then they're like, oh, I didn't know he was that bad. Oh, I told him that I didn't want to hear shit, and something
Hmm.
happens to him, and you're like, oh my god, I feel terrible. Well, sometimes it's best just to vent, get it out, and just get it off your chest, because the more you keep that bottled in, it's like a cork. When it explodes, that thing can go wherever and through stuff. So you can't have that happen. You just can't. Doesn't matter you're male, female. It doesn't matter, because if you don't do that, the mental breakdown will come. Not many people know, but I remember years ago, I was very young. My mom had mental breakdown. She was institutionalized for, I don't know, a month or two for sure.
Hmm.
Well, I remember I was very young. I was probably, I don't think I was more than like 9 or 10. All I remember one time, it's something that stuck with me. We went to go see her, and she was in a room, and like my dad brought us there. We talked to her for a little bit, and we left. And like, she just broke down mentally, to the point where she just, now granted, she got better and everything, and she came around, but it's one of them things where it's like, you know, uh, if that happens to you, what happens to the farm? You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Then like Gok was saying too, like now everything that you're doing is in jeopardy to the point where it's not helping your mom, because now, like I said, you're sick, you're going through stuff, and now you can't work because maybe whatever's happening. So it snowballs into something huge to the point
Yes,
where
very much
nobody's
so.
going to win, because not only you might lose the farm, but you're going to get out of there. Your mom's going to go somewhere. And all of a sudden you're like, you're going to be picking up the pieces, going, "Damn, this was a disaster." A big disaster. Now I really don't know how to put all the pieces back together.
I'm going to answer some questions here. Leah, we are looking into home care right now that is one thing that's been on our list. Mike, I appreciate that you have a great article on the stigma of mental health. Really appreciate that, brother. Please email that or just DM me with it. Leah, yes, dementia and Alzheimer's. I dealt with on both my grandparents' side, my dad and my mom's. My grandmother on my mom's side had Alzheimer's, and my grandfather on my dad's side had Alzheimer's. It is a very brutal thing to watch. I remember at one point I was playing ball in the kitchen, like just catch, with my grandfather, and he was laughing like a 5-year-old. I've watched my grandmother revert back to the point where she was talking to a teddy bear and singing at lullabies. It is very tough to watch somebody go through that. And you dealing with in the field of mental health, God bless you for doing that because you see it every day. Without people like you, it would be, rough. So you've been in the field for 23 years. At some point I might message you. I do appreciate that. Thank you, Leah. So I just wanted to catch up on some questions there, guys. Yeah. But yeah, I totally appreciate you guys giving me different perspectives on this. And I think, like you were saying, yeah, some people don't want to hear, but if you find the right people that just want to listen and will give you a different perspective.
But that's
the
hardest part, though. That's the hardest part is finding the people that are going, "Oh, you're having a bad time? Talk to me. I got time.
Yes.
Let's talk for half an hour and let's just chat."
Mm-hmm.
Too many people today are like, "I got this to do, I got that to do, I got to go, and I don't have time for this because I'm too busy." Life runs them. I say it all the time. You got to sit back. You got to look at the big picture. You got to enjoy the views. You got to enjoy shit because, make moments, make memories because one day you're going to be inside somewhere and you may never get back outside. And eventually you're not going to be here no longer. If you don't enjoy stuff now, 10 years, 20 years, it doesn't matter if you're young or old. You're young.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, you don't have to be old to pass away. That's been proven for how long now? So you got to enjoy it. So when somebody's looking for help and needs help, matter of fact, I was at a show. Well, I had a rental yesterday, and we were setting up, and it wasn't really a show. It was like a graduation party, and they were just putting on a couple matches or whatever. So we were setting up, and I got a message from one of my friends. And he was like having a panic attack and having problems, and I was like, oh, right away. I messaged like, hey, because I'm just freaking out, this and that. And I said, all right, what's wrong? He was telling me, I said, hey, what, and I probably talked to him for probably 15, 20 minutes on things. And he's like, I need a distraction. I need this. So I told him he loves wrestling and whatnot on. I said, what about watching this match or watch that? Oh yeah. And he goes, thanks, man. And like 20 minutes of my time, at best, 20 minutes, maybe not even 20 minutes. He reached out. I didn't be like, who the hell? I didn't ignore him. I'm like, oh shit, okay, you know what? Because if he was freaking out and something would have happened, man, I would have felt like shit. At least here, like he felt better. He calmed down. Things were better. You know what? Good. Now I haven't talked to him today yet, but I was going to probably reach out later on anyway. So take 10, 15 minutes of your time. Somebody needs something. Sometimes you just need to talk. And I don't know where phone. It was all through Messenger, just talking. Text, he texts back, hey, I need, and I just said, hey, what about this? What about that? What about this story in the wrestling? This, oh, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that. Good. Do that. Get that stuff off your mind. Do stuff that you like to do. Focus on something good, nothing bad. At least you get
Mm,
through today. We'll worry about tomorrow. You know,
definitely.
and that's what you got to find. Those are the ones. Find the people that are willing to take the time. A lot of people don't want
Definitely.
to. I don't have time because of whatever. Sometimes, once you find them people, and like this here, if there
Mhm.
any of us has a problem, we could all again we could text each other whatever and have hey, I got going on. Even with Rob, always what's going on. So the open line of communication is there for all of us. It should be there
Definitely.
for everybody, not just selected people or certain people. My DMs are open. My number, I'm open. My phone. Somebody needs something. I'm there. I may not always be available at that one point. Yesterday I
Mhm.
was, thank God. But like, somebody needs to talk at some point. You send me a message, I'll get back to you. So we need more of that. We need more of this. The people say, hey, it's okay to be upset. It's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about whatever because it's terrible right now and I need answers.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't get every answer, but you get a
Mhm.
direction going, okay, this is the direction I'm leaning now. I feel a little bit better. What's going on? I can now calm down and relax and not panic because, shit's going to hit the fan and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So
I had a friend that was stressed out on 4th of July. Had to work, and his significant other was kind of being a pain in his ass, and he had to go to the gym and work things out. And I made sure the next day to at least text him to make sure things were a little better. I,
and that's
I, I think I
sometimes
know.
all you
I
need.
think I know what I'm talking about here.
Oh yeah.
And and some and sometimes that's all you need, to just
Yeah.
need a little bit of, you know, it goes a long way sometimes. It may not feel like it's much, but it's enough to be like, oh wow, you know what? I feel a little bit
Compassion,
better.
just a little bit of compassion towards one another. I think is what it boils down to.
The world would be a better place if we had a lot more compassion.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So guys, we hit our hour mark for today, and I think my Bluetooth speakers here, the earbuds are dying on me. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you guys so much for talking this out with me. I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely.
and being in the public eye with it too. I mean, and that's one of the things, like I always said, with mental health, and Jared knows best too, and you do too, that the stigma behind it, being able to take these moments like we did today and share it with friends just for a moment. Then those are the people who care, like you said, Mark,
Yep.
finding those right people. And if you do that, because I can tell you, honest to God, after this conversation today, I feel a lot more at ease inside.
Good.
A lot more at ease.
And
That was,
that's why I think this needs to be done more and more. The world has become toxic because everybody's freaking out about things and whatnot. All they're worried about this, they're worried about that. They forget that we still got to live life. Certain things aren't going to affect us, and if they do, it's down the road and stuff happens. And we can't let that shit get to us because
no,
we got to wake up every day and go to work or do whatever we got to do day in and day out. So worrying what's going to happen next month, next year, or because of this happened or that happened, you're all worried about too much. You got to wake up tomorrow because that's hard to do. There's some
yeah,
people that don't wake up the next day. They go to bed and they don't wake
e-
up. You know,
exactly.
so worry about waking up. When you wake up, worry then like, oh shit, you know what? I got stuff to do today. Let's get it done. Let's not worry
Yes,
about stuff down the road because down the road may never come. That's why I always say I take it one day at a time, and I'm thankful every day I get to wake up because there's a bunch of people that don't.
exactly, exactly. People would say, "Oh, the typical thing. How's your day going?" And I'd say, "Living the dream." And they go, "Oh, I've heard that before." I said, "Have you though?" They go, "Well, what's the dream?" I said, I'm above ground. That's the dream.
Yeah.
It's another day above ground."
Yep.
So, but
Yeah, because
gentlemen,
then you weren't living the dream then because you're not living anymore.
exactly, exactly. I'm going to give some shout outs right now. Leah Shannon, thank you for joining the conversation today. She says, also never judge a person because you don't know their story. Mike Posovic, thank you also for chiming in today. Chad Yoder, he says a lot of the stuff nowadays are toxic, even on social media. Yes, a lot of things are toxic on social media, and sometimes I think we all need to just put down our phones for a little bit, go to a creek and fish, go for a walk, maybe listen to some music or whatever it is.
Touch some grass. Touch the
Yeah,
earth. That's the most important thing. Touch the earth.
exactly.
You
And
know.
that's one thing I learned as a farmer too. The more I touch the earth, the happier I am.
I can't tell you the number of times like I'd be out plowing or doing something, and it's just like you're out there and you're just like it's quiet. Besides the tractor running and stuff, but I mean, there's no outside noise. You're out there, you're cutting hay, or you're planting, or you're getting ready to plant, or you're making hay. Yeah, is it hot? Yeah, but you know what? Something that I loved it. I loved it when I did it. I just loved doing it. It was peaceful. I didn't have a care in the world. And I could, if I wanted to think about something, I wanted to, I could just, my mind just opened up going, this, I'm looking, you look at the fields, you look at everything going, man, for me, it couldn't get any better than that just because I didn't have to deal with people and it was peaceful for what I was doing because it's something that I love to do.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Chad also said, also talk with good people who want to help. Most definitely. Well, all right, gentlemen. Like I always say, stay thirsty for life. Until next month, it's the House of Men's Mental Health. 3 of the 4 horsemen. Shout out to Rob right now. He's feeling a bit under the weather because of the heat and stuff today. So rest up, brother.
Yeah, I hope you feel better, buddy.
Yeah.
Until next month, or if you guys want to do this again in 2 weeks, it's entirely up to you. Maybe that's something we can.
Yeah, because I mean,
spread the word a little more often.
We can do more if you want. I mean, a lot of my Sundays are open, so I mean, I'm cool with whatever.
All right. Yep. You down for it, Docs?
Yeah, Sunday. I'm off Sundays, and I mean, so I'm done. I'm normally done at the gym by 2:30. So whenever you want to do.
Yeah, if you want to start doing it twice a month, whatever, or whatever you want to do. I mean, I'm game for whatever. So.
Perfect. I think this is something we really need to get the word out about and break this silence. And you know what? Put that 1, 2, 3 on that stigma.
Hell yeah.
I think it's about time. Let's start raising arms in victory.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
Oh, I got one more. Ruby posted in. I understand what you're doing, though, and keep strong. So, all right. I definitely will, Ruby. I appreciate everything. And you comment on it. Please share this video around this live stream. Let's break this silence. Let's get it out there and know it's okay to talk. Until next time, stay thirsty for life. Cheers.
Hey, guys.
See you guys.